Everyone loves a villain that they can understand. It makes us question our own sense of morality in a way that is extremely satisfying and makes the character simply feel more real. While we all might be the hero of our own story, it's important to remember we could always be the villain in someone else's. It's me, Amanda, and today we'll be expanding on this as we count down the top 10 villains who were right. Who do you feel is the most justified? Number 10, Goff. I gotta say, I really love a lot of James Gunn's takes on villains. Whether he's helping to make villains that are just completely wild and awful, or whether he's making a villain that you can sometimes sympathize with and even kind of hope wins. Either way, these villains tend to be very complex in terms of their builds. When it comes to Peacemaker, the DC television series, the main villain ended up being Goff, who was the leader of the alien race known as the Butterflies. What Goff wanted was to save Earth so that it could be a place where the butterflies could also live, undercover among humans disguised as them. So basically the DCU's butterflies are akin to Marvel's Skrulls, except perhaps done better, at least in the DCU versus the MCU. Peacemaker made it just about these aliens wanting to exist on and help preserve the planet of Earth. They don't want to erase all humans and take the planet for themselves. No, no, no. They just want to help the humans to actually survive by influencing them and kind of running Earth, but doing it better. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, and if you love when we talk about villains that we love, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 9, Circe. While Circe tends to come across as fairly evil, there is actually a reason as to why she behaves the way she does. She has been severely mistreated throughout her life, and so she kind of chooses to shield herself by making herself more powerful and controlling other people. She has also actually acted as a magical guide or advisor to Diana's Wonder Woman in the past as well, often sharing information that is true, although doing so in an attempt to control the narrative and kind of manipulate Diana, of course. But still, I feel like should Circe have all the power, sometimes she makes some good reasons for it. Number 8, Madelyne Pryor. Well, I don't think Madelyne Pryor was right when it comes to her attempting to unleash hell on Earth in Inferno. I do have to admit that she has some pretty fair points when it comes to how she feels justified in behaving badly. Maddie was created as a clone of Jean Grey by Mr. Sinister for him to use in breeding her with Scott so that he might end up with the perfect mutant child, which he then hoped to spirit away and take for himself. Not only did Maddie have to struggle with this realization when it came to her origin and her creation, but it also came at a time when Maddie was already struggling personally after Scott Summers, Cyclops, aka her husband, had left her and their newborn in Alaska all alone while he returned to the X-Men. She was discarded in so many ways, so it makes sense that she would turn on the people she once called her friends, the X-Men, seeing them as abandoning her. And I mean, they didn't mean to, I'm sure, but at the same time, they kinda did. Number 7, Screenslaver. Screenslaver is the main villain from Incredibles 2, and when it comes to why they do what they do, their actions actually feel kinda justified. Screenslaver simply wants to show people that heroes shouldn't be blindly trusted because they did something heroic in their past. At the end of the day, superheroes have a ton of power, and there's really no one that's governing them. There's no one to make sure that they stay in line, to make sure that they continue to act as a hero, or to challenge their actions and methods with their position of power. What Screenslaver wants to show people is that heroes should not just be trusted blindly, and that we should actually perhaps regulate them, or even simply not have superheroes at all. Now granted, the way that they want to show people this by controlling the superheroes to make them do terrible things, thereby taking away their own willpower, is, well, pretty villainous. Definitely questionable methods there, but in terms of what Screenslaver is trying to show people, I think we can all agree that that actually makes some sense. Number 6, Amanda Waller. Amanda Waller does what she does for what she believes is the good of the world. She's not above doing terrible things, or rather instructing others to do them, but at the end of the day, it's only because no one else will do those things, and she believes getting them done will actually protect her nation, the people of the planet, and even just the planet itself. Number 5, Doctor Doom. I mean, Doctor Doom is just one of the smartest characters that we have over at Marvel Comics, so of course I'm going to say that he is probably the guy that is right, even when he is acting like a villain. Now granted, the thing with Doctor Doom is that his ego often gets in the way of anything he's doing that could be good. That being said, even with his ego in the way, Doom has also managed to do some pretty incredible and even, I would argue, beneficial things. That being said, even when he's making himself look good and he's not necessarily necessarily acting with the interests of everybody or even a specific group in mind, he can still do some pretty great things that actually end up just helping a lot of people. So while Doctor Doom's motives, yes, might be questionable, his actions actually end up making him seem rightly justified, and at times even kind of make him look like a hero in his own way. Number 4. Emma Frost. There are a few things Emma Frost has been right about. Granted, a lot of her more poignant points come from the time when she was considered more of a hero than a villain, but still, Emma has made good points in the past, and to be honest, while she hasn't been a straight up villain for quite a while, her villainous history still looms over her when it comes to her trying to get people to see her point of view. Many times people have actually dismissed what Emma is saying just because of her past. I would say one of the times when Emma has seemed to be right most recently would have been when she actually called out Professor X and Magneto for keeping Moira's existence a secret from her and pretty much all mutant kind. And to be fair, she was definitely right about that one, because then Moira ended up being crazy and evil. Emma was also one of the few folks who believed the best way to deal with Scarlet Witch during the House of M event was to just take her out permanently, before Scarlet Witch warped reality even. Now, while not ideal, especially for me as a big Wanda fan, I personally would not argue for that if I were at the table. If people had listened to Emma, if other heroes had listened to her, the mutants would have never been erased, and many other tragic events that spun out of this may have even been avoided. Now granted, if we also got Scarlet Witch someone to talk to before that and didn't try to take her kids from her that she created, that also might have helped. But I still think Emma had a point there at that point. Number 3. Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor might want to take out Superman just because he's an alien, but at the same time there are also days when Lex acknowledges that in order for them to save Earth, everyone has to come together, including him and Superman. They gotta work together. While Lex Luthor tends to lead his own supervillain groups, which he actually hopes to use to destroy his enemies on the Justice League, he also has used teams made up of supervillains to defeat the Justice League for what he believes to be Earth's own good, and has also aimed to simply be the better superhero team with his own group of villains, which he uses to sort of rival the Justice League, believing he could basically do a better job. And honestly, I feel like sometimes Lex probably could. Let's be real. Number 2. Namor. When it comes to Namor, he's not exactly a villain straight up, but he's definitely acted as a villain in the past while also really being a hero at all times to his own people. He's an anti-hero. He swings kind of either way depending on who's writing him, but he's also been a villain before. He is the king of Atlantis, or in the MCU, Talokan, where he is also worshipped as a godlike figure and often acts with his people's best interests in mind. Because of this often actually puts him on the side of being a villain when it comes to the surface world. Oftentimes the people of the surface are incidentally harming the oceans, often without really paying mind to the damage they cause, and sometimes doing so intentionally, and this is what makes Namor act against them. In reality, he's just trying to protect his people and his world, but that also means that he has to do some pretty terrible things. Namor was also one of the few people during the incursions that was willing to actually destroy other worlds in order to protect his own, and honestly that was probably the best tactic that they had at the time. I mean, when worlds are literally colliding into each other, sometimes you gotta get rid of some other ones so that your worlds can survive and not be collided with, you know? Number 1. Magneto. Magneto has become more and more of a hero over the years, and this is pretty much because his actions are fueled by, well, his life experiences. Magneto has seen some of the worst that humans are capable of throughout his life, and because of this, it makes him wary of trusting them. In fact, it actually makes him often turn on humans and act against them because he just expects that they'll do the same to mutants in the future if they haven't already. And the fact is, he's often correct about his suspicions. In reality, he just offers a different take on how to best cope with the fact that there are so many humans out there that hate mutants just for existing. Now, while Professor X seeks to prove to the humans that mutants deserve rights, Magneto feels that this is something that should just be given to mutants because, well, they are living sentient beings, and his approach is simply to take those rights through force. This doesn't mean that Magneto has the best tactics necessarily in demanding those rights, and it's understandable why some prefer Professor X's approach, but when it comes to if he's right, like should you trust humans all the time as a mutant, I think the answer is abundantly clear based on all of the comic book history we have thus far, and that is no, you shouldn't. So yeah, he's right about that. That's about it. Thanks for watching. Until next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.